Hi, I'm Tim Draper, and you're listening to the What is Crypto podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the What is Crypto podcast. I am your host, Nye, and today I have a very special guest on the line. I have
Tim Draper,
an American venture capital investor and
founder of Draper Associates and a number of other venture funds. Also started Draper University of Heroes for a school for entrepreneurs here in the Silicon Valley.
very well known for his predictions and his support of blockchain. In this episode, we have an in-depth conversation about investing. What should the traditional retail investor look for when making an investment in cryptocurrencies? Is Bitcoin the best and only investment that someone should make? And also, what does a venture capitalist look for when he is making decisions to invest in future technologies such as cryptocurrency? I want to make the quick disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is simply for entertainment and education purposes only. I'm really thankful that Tim took the time to come on the podcast today to discuss with us these specific topics. This is going to be a really fun episode. So guys, if you want to ask Tim or myself any specific questions, head over to our Facebook group, join the conversation, ask any questions, or just tag us at What is Crypto on Twitter and ask a question there. All right, let's see what Tim has to say. How would you describe yourself?
On a mission, and the mission has been to spread venture capital and entrepreneurship around the world. But interestingly, I feel like that mission is accomplished. And now I have a new mission. And that mission all started with Bitcoin because it gave me the window into a decentralized world, into a world that's completely open and transparent and global, and one that's no longer tribal. I mean, I have a vision of a world where the countries of the world, the governments of the world compete for us, much the way business competes for us, for our attention and our money and all of that. And I think governments are going to move into that, and probably slowly, by starting with the services that can be provided across border and then moving down to the ones that have to be local. It's still great because as a venture capitalist, I have the ability to drive toward those missions. I can invest in companies that can in some way move and inspire people to start thinking about new ways of moving industries, whether it's the insurance industry or healthcare or government itself.
And why are you interested in these topics? Especially, why are you interested in investing?
Well, I've always thought of us as one world, so that's an easy one. But investing, for me, I never had the heavy concentration that I would need to be an entrepreneur. So I feel that the next best thing to being an entrepreneur is to be a venture capitalist or someone who helps entrepreneurs become successful with their hopes, dreams, and visions and missions. And as a venture capitalist, I support those entrepreneurs in doing what they need to do, and that drives me. Investing is really just a vehicle for that. Interestingly, I look at Bitcoin and other currencies as currencies, and I've never really been a currency trader or a currency investor. I've always thought of currencies as just vehicles for exchanging value. And so when people say, are you going to sell your Bitcoin? I always look at them and say, well, wait a second. I mean, that's like asking me if I'm going to sell my dollars. And so I sort of feel like as an investor, I invest in people and visions and entrepreneurs. And that's the way I look at investing. I look at Bitcoin as a better currency than the dollar or than any other currency out there. And so I would rather use that than use something that's tied to some government force or some political whim from some government official or politician. I'd much rather hold a currency that was solid and stable like Bitcoin.
To you, what is Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is a new vehicle that will create more liquidity, more wealth around the world, a vehicle that allows people to not be tied to their existing government when they are dealing with their money. Imagine being a fairly wealthy person in Syria and you have all this Syrian money, and then the military comes in and pushes you out, and now you're a Greek refugee and you have nothing. They don't take your Syrian money and it's completely meaningless. Well, if some percentage, quarter of your money were in Bitcoin, you could start your life over in Greece just by pulling down the Bitcoin and move forward. Start your life over, get a job, buy a house, whatever it takes to get started again. And that's kind of the way I like to explain what it is I see in Bitcoin. I see the ability to have this global, transparent, open currency, but I also see that it allows people to move their currency and share their currency. And that can only help to create global wealth. And global wealth generally means that the people of the world will all be better off. And so that's a great thing. And that got me very excited. Now, the technologies that come with Bitcoin, the blockchain, the smart contracts, technologies like OpenNode and Lightning Network are going to make this currency, Bitcoin, the center of so much more than just a currency. It's going to be able to do things that we've never been able to do before. Obvious one might be micropayments. You can't really make micropayments in dollars and drop micropayments into people's wallets automatically. Moving money across borders was much more difficult with Western Union or even through the banking system. And then the other thing that's happening is that keeping a perfect record of everything you spend is difficult through the banking system. You get all sorts of different ways of moving money, so it's hard to keep track of. So you hire accountants and whatever. Well, the blockchain keeps perfect records of all the money that gets moved through. And that allows for a whole new world, one where you hire an accountant to do other things. You don't need an audit because it's already done. You could build in taxes. You can make it so that people are taxed on transactions rather than taxed on income or wherever else they're taxed. And then the smart contracts are quite amazing because you could build all your contracts or the deals that you make in software so that there's no dispute when the event happens. So it's sort of perfect for insurance. You pay your premium, you pay your premium, you pay your premium, and then the claim happens when an event happens, and maybe you use artificial intelligence to determine whether that event actually happened. But then the payment is immediate. So you're not fighting the insurance company for months on end trying to get your money. You immediately get it because you built that into the smart contract. I'm hoping for a time where, as a venture capitalist, I can raise money in Bitcoin, invest it all into companies in Bitcoin, and have the companies pay all their employees and suppliers in Bitcoin. What that does is all the transactions are already on the blockchain, all the accounting is done. And then I could have everything built into a smart contract so that my investors get their money into their wallets first, and then the money moves to us. And same thing happens with the entrepreneur, where the entrepreneur gets their money for the sale of a company, and we get our money for the sale of the company too. So it can be all so much simpler, and simple really works well in business. So I think this is going to affect so many different industries. And when combined with artificial intelligence and big data and deep learning, you're going to see industries like healthcare completely transform because the insurance will all be done in Bitcoin, and the diagnostics, like the artificial intelligence, can do a better job of diagnosing what you have because they'll have so much more data than you could possibly ever tell a doctor in a certain amount of time. This is really one of the biggest, most exciting times that I've ever seen in the history of venture capital. So I'm excited. I think this is a really great opportunity.
And describe the future that you would like to live in 50 years. If we could skip 50 years from today and go to that spot in history, what would you like that future to look like?
I know customs offices would be gone. I think the nationalism and all of that, I think that becomes less and less rational. the idea that we're all tribal. I think that tribalism is going to go away. It used to be a way of sort of, we protect our land against those other people that have their land, and we draw a line so that nobody goes and interferes with anybody else's tribe. Well, now I actually think all those borders are falling. Now, of course, there's a rise of nationalism, but I look at that as the roar of the dying lion. You see a rise of nationalism as a reaction to the fact that we don't need these nations nearly as much as we used to, because we all do business internationally. We do it globally. I think you're somewhere in Fiji or something, and I'm in America, and my investments are all spread out throughout the world, and I have relationships with people from all over the world. I don't feel that nationalistic tendency. And so I think that'll be gone in 50 years. The other thing is that I actually think that all of our jobs will be gone in 50 years. We will all be reinventing ourselves. Venture capital will all be done by AI. This kind of podcast, that'll all be done by AI. The Uber drivers will be self-driving. I think the doctors will be helping the AI provide the right diagnosis, but the doctors won't have to go memorize things for 12 years to figure out whether they could be doctors. I think you can be trained as a doctor much quicker because the AI does a lot of the diagnostics and the prescriptions for therapeutics. I think we will have much more space travel in 50 years. I think that's going to be very exciting. That's going to move. We might start settling another planet. I think we're going to have major breakthroughs probably in physics, where they realize that they kind of went the wrong way with particle physics and they can go in another direction. I think that there are going to be some changes in the way people design drugs. I think they're going to be bespoke drugs. They're going to be tied to the individual and their DNA and their approach to life. And I think that's going to be pretty interesting. I think travel will be varied. We'll have very different numbers of different ways of getting from point A to point B. And it will be automated if we want it, or fun if we don't. I do think that we'll probably be flying around in some sort of gadgetry that actually takes us off the ground and lets us fly around. That'll be, I think 50 years is plenty of time for that to happen. Let's see, what other industries will be changed? I think insurance will all be based on AI. I think governance will be competitive. So we'll choose our pension program from Chile and our workman's comp from the US and maybe our healthcare insurance from Canada, but then we might have our social security from some country that hasn't been invented yet or is out in space or 11 miles offshore. There's some pretty cool things that are going to be happening. And I think everybody's going to be using Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency, because I don't think currencies will be government driven. I think they're going to be generally decentralized and open and transparent and open source. And, I think Bitcoin opened that bag up and it's not going to go back. And nobody's going to want to use some currency that's tied to some political force or government or whatever, when they can have one that's open, transparent, global, easy. And that means that stable coins might end up being kind of a bridge to this world, but I don't think they're the long-term winners here. I think it will be the pure crypto, the Bitcoins and maybe Ethereums, maybe Tezos.
I want to give a big shout out to our first sponsor, and our first sponsor is Celsius Network. They are doing some really, really cool stuff, trying to revolutionize the way we think about the financial world and financial services. Celsius offers 10% annual interest on all crypto deposits, and there's no secret to how they're doing it. That 10% comes from them sharing 80% of their profits rather than the 0.0000001% that banks choose to share. Celsius is giving each user $10 in Bitcoin when they make their first 200 deposits or more in crypto or stable coins when they use the promo code NYE. These guys are working hard to revolutionize the way we look at the financial world, and they're taking on the banks. I'm personally a huge fan of what Celsius is building, so dive over to celsius.network to learn more and to use your promo code NYE in order to get $10 in BTC when you make your first deposit of $200 or more. And what have you learned by traveling and meeting different people from different cultures that speak different languages? Maybe just one specific lesson that comes to mind.
Well, the thing that I've really learned is that people are the same everywhere. And the other thing I've learned is that the world over that time that I've been traveling, has, I guess you can say, kind of equalized or something, where almost no matter where I go, I can have pretty much the same quality of life. I can call an Uber, I can go into a Starbucks, and now people realize that work is not necessarily place-based, because they can actually get sometimes more done when they're on airplanes or out on the beach or going to conventions or whatever. They get a lot done that way. I know I wrote my book on iPhone whenever I was doing an international trip. And so I was heavily productive while I was in the air. So I think this is going to be a really very interesting time. I think it's going to be very difficult for the politicians and government officials to understand that they are needed less as a police force and they're needed more as a service organization. And I think the countries that recognize early that they really need to be a service organization are going to be the ones that look really stellar in 10 to 50 years from now. And the ones that are nationalistic, control freak based are going to really have trouble. Their economies will sag and their people will be depressed, because they know, all the people of the world know what it's like to be in a free market and to be open and transparent. And so if some politician shuts that down, the people will know and they'll rebel.
What should people do with their money, in your opinion? As a very successful investor, should people be saving it, investing it, spending it, buying Bitcoin, etc.?
I don't give advice for investing anymore because every person is different. Some people just want to hold on to their money, and some people want to move it, use it, put it to work. I'm of the camp that if you have capital, you should keep putting it to work because it just keeps coming back. You want your capital working for you. You don't want it sitting in a mattress, even if it's Bitcoin, even if you know that it is appreciating in value, you know that over time this thing's going to be worth a ton. Even your Bitcoin should be put to work. So I think that's a general overall view of investing. I do think that if you're in a country where you're not 100% satisfied with your government, you should probably hold some Bitcoin or crypto or something that you can pull down from another country in case you need to leave quickly. And in case the economy turns faster than anyone thinks and people go just to Bitcoin and away from their fiat currency really quickly, the fiat currency might not be worth much. And so you might want to have some sort of a hedge there. Otherwise, I invest in people, good people.
And this might sound like a very basic question, but for people that are unfamiliar, what is investing?
Investing is to take an asset, any asset, and to put it to work. So if you have a building, investing means to market and bring people into that building so that the building is being put to use. If it's a company that sells manufacturing item, then investing is to invest into the manufacture of the product you're going to be developing and to invest into the marketing of that product. If you're talking about just investing into stocks or bonds or currencies, by investing, you are owning a piece of a company. If you buy stock, you are owning the right to a current stream of income if you buy a bond. And if you buy a currency, you're just buying that currency. and you're holding it. You're assuming that that currency goes up against some other currency. But generally, the best advice is to invest in yourself because you will know how to put your time and your money and your effort to work.
Is Bitcoin an investment? And how would you classify that investment, aka low risk, high risk, etc.?
It's funny. I don't really think of it as an investment. I think of it as a currency that is being used for investment or for the purchase of goods and services. And it being a currency like that, then you want to use it. And then you also want to get more of it, just the way you want to get more dollars today. But I don't look at it as really an investment. I look at it as an asset. People say, well, Bitcoin's really volatile. I think, well, no, one Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin. All these other currencies are jumping around against Bitcoin as they slowly disappear from the map. So that's kind of the way I look at that.
And for the final question for you, will Bitcoin or cryptocurrency change Wall Street or change the investment landscape?
Yeah, I actually do think that it will because Wall Street, if you're referring to the banks and the government have built a sort of a oligopolistic relationship where they are the only participants, and the government makes it very difficult to become a bank, and the banks add a few more regulations in there so that the barrier to enter and become a bank is very high. So then they can keep charging more and more and more for their service. And their service is really just to be that trusted third party when you're buying or selling something and there's change. So it's like if I trade you a grapefruit for a house, I owe you a lot of something else. And the bank is what holds that something else. Well, now that can all be done with Bitcoin and you don't need the banks. And so, yeah, does Wall Street change? You bet they do. They have to adapt to an entirely new system. And that new system is going to be much more fluid and dynamic. And so, we're investors in Coinbase, and we sort of feel like that might end up being the biggest equivalent of a bank in the world. But they'll take on very different personalities than the banks that you see out there today.
Awesome, Tim. I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much, man.
Okay, terrific. Send me the link.
All right, guys, that was a really fun episode. I really enjoyed having Tim on. This is the first time I actually got to sit down with Tim and have a full-blown discussion and conversation with him about cryptocurrencies and things like that. So first off, I want to give a big thank you to Tim for coming on the show. I really like his definition of Bitcoin. And beyond that, I really like how motivated and inspired Tim is about this technology. This guy really believes it, and you can tell by the way he speaks, by the conversations that he has, and by the way that he approaches discussion around cryptocurrencies and blockchain. This guy's really bullish, and I really, really hope that some of his price predictions come true. It would be beneficial for all of us. Guys, I want you to do your own research today, and in the do your own research section, the DYOR, what I would like you to do, the homework that I have for you, is to go look up an article about Tim. Learn about him. Learn about some of his previous successes, even some of his previous failures that have molded him to the venture capitalist and the investor that he is today. And as always, guys, please go over to iTunes, hit that subscribe button, hit the review button, leave us a 5-star rating. It would mean a lot to us, and it would really, really help us out. All right, I'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.